Welcome back, everybody, to the Fighting for Freedom podcast. I just want to say thank you to everybody for all your love and support. You guys have helped this channel grow dramatically. If you could please, at this time, drop us a like, comment, subscribe, share our podcast, turn on those bell notifications, and leave us a rating and good review. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Fighting for freedom, one podcast at a time.
Cheers. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode on the pod. Today is a little different type of episode. I have someone who's not directly connected serving in the United States military, but he's worked with militaries in the past. Duncan, what's up, brother, man? How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm honored to be on the show.
Thank you very much, man. I love the energy. I love the accent. It's definitely not from Kansas. So where are you from, Duncan?
So I live just outside Oxford in the United Kingdom, which definitely is not Kansas.
Yeah, definitely not Kansas. So, Duncan, what kind of got your interest to wanting to be a guest on my podcast?
Well, so as you said, like right at the top, I've worked with a few guys who've served in the past. In a couple of different capacities, actually. So I used to be really involved in local government, and we used to do a lot of stuff with the part of the British Army, the Royal Logistics Corps, which is based just outside the town I live. And, great bunch of people. Always enjoyed, being at events with them because they could really organise stuff, and that, like their food was amazing. So I always enjoyed working with them. And I love that kind of like that attitude just in life, with people who just say, okay, we'll deal with it. We can get that done. Whatever your issue is, we can get that done. I absolutely love that. I wish there were more people like that in the world. So that's the kind of like positive, nice sort of stuff. But a couple of years ago, I worked with a guy, and he was from the Special Boat Service. So I think that's the British equivalent of the Navy SEALs. So he went through the Royal Marine Corps and joined the Special Forces. So top of the shop, elite of the elite kind of thing. Very dedicated, disciplined, courageous. The kind of person that most people admire. And I believe the expression you guys use is he had a lot of intestinal fortitude, right?
Okay, yes. Yeah,
and when I was working with him, he couldn't quite get why he couldn't get any handle on his drinking. He couldn't understand why he couldn't control it because, he literally had everything else in his life squared away. I mean, he went through the longest infantry training program in the world and joined one of the most elite groups of soldiers in the world. He was discipline and control personified, but he just couldn't get a handle on alcohol. And for me, that was a real pivotal moment in my life because I kind of understood it. If he can fall into the trap, then mere mortals like me, it's like no shame, if he can have a problem with it, then any of us can. And, he's one of the main reasons that I started working specifically with men and making a lot of really bad kind of like dodgy pseudo-military references. I'll apologize for those now.
No, that's totally fine. I think cursing and references like that are totally okay. They're okay with me, and on my platform, I like to be as real as possible because people that have these problems are real, right? So if you're not real when talking about them, how are you really gonna conquer these issues that people face? And that's actually courageous to know that the guy who's, like you said, top notch, it still faces these problems. It's good to know, and it's one of the reasons why I want to do a podcast like this, is to let people know that, hey, no matter how big you are or how small you are, everyone has the same amount of problems, right? Everyone has the same type of problem. So you're not alone when it comes to things like this. just because you see someone who's 7 foot tall, built like a brick shit house, doesn't mean that they have, any difference than you. So thank you so much for that input. That was that's honestly, without getting too much into his story, I kind of want to know what made you personally want to get into maybe helping people with alcohol problems.
Yeah, so it was 20 years of drinking too much and treating fried chicken as some sort of snack, smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, all of that kind of like terrible stuff that puts you on the wrong path, not just in terms of your health in the future, but like every day I was getting out of bed in the morning, I was struggling, I had no energy, no focus, and then when I stopped drinking, it was just like, it was the greatest gift I ever got. I mean, apart from my daughter being born, that was pretty good too. But, in general, like, I just had all this energy and focus and just like an amount of calmness that just sort of like came over me, because I spent a lot of time kind of chasing after alcohol, chasing after cigarettes, chasing after food. And when I stopped doing that, it made everything a lot simpler and a lot calmer. And I'd love to tell you I have no stress in my life, but clearly I do have stress.
Everybody does.
Feel I'm in a much better place to deal with it now, and that's that has been incredible for me. And all I want to do is share that with as many people as I can, really.
Yeah. Well, Duncan, I want to know, when was your first like realization of, hey, like, this is a problem? Like, when, like, how can someone identify, like, hey, this is not, like, this is becoming a normal thing, gotta change what I'm doing?
Yeah. See, the thing is, for me, it wasn't one of those kind of like staring in the mirror 4 a.m. moments that look really good in films and often make up important chapters in books on the subject. That kind, because honestly, I don't think that sort of stuff ever really happens. I think it's more of a kind of a growing realization. It's kind of always there. Like the first time you ever drink alcohol, it's poison. Like your body's not that stupid. It goes, this is quite toxic, and then you feel bad the next day and all of that kind of jazz. So I think it was always there. It was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I kid myself into believing that it was helping me to socialize. It was impressing the girls. It was making me funny. All of these things, but that kind of side of it, it just became. That sort of got smaller and smaller and smaller, and all of the negative effects, the stress that it was causing me, the way it made me feel, the impact it was having on my relationships, the way it was getting in the way of kind of me being who I really needed to be. That bit just got steadily larger and larger and larger. And then, I reached a point in my relationship with my wife where it kind of like, it was make your mind up time.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. Not only for you being tired of it, your family and your wife being tired of it. Just like, okay, are we done? Like, let's wrap this up. Okay, so you finally hit that point. What's step one for you? Like, what would be step one for somebody listening to being like, hey, maybe I'm spending too much money on alcohol. Maybe I'm waking up feeling like shit every day. I want to better myself. What was, from your experience, your step one?
So I think it's really, really important to note that just having that realization and just kind of like accepting to yourself that something might need to be done, that is such an important point. And, that is massive. Without that, you can't get any further, can you? So that is always step one. Of course, if you leave it at step one, you never get anywhere. So what's step two? There are a lot of ways to stop drinking. I think one of the best things to do to start off with is get a kind of reliable picture of your drinking. Like, how bad is it? Is it like real problem drinking? Is it kind of like your doctor is going to check you into rehab in the next 20 minutes? Or is it just kind of like, you are drinking too much, it's having an impact on you, you need to do something about it, but you don't need to deal with it right today, you can take a kind of slower approach. So typically when I work with people, we work over sort of 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. And it's a gradual process. And clearly that's not right for everybody. You know, I've worked with people who, never mind 6 weeks, they're going to be dead in 6 days if they don't do something. So you've got to kind of like, first off, you've got to figure out where it is, which is quite difficult on your own. You could do that by talking to the right kind of medical professional. Anybody that uses the alcohol use disorder identification test, that will give you a really, really good idea of it. It was developed by the World Health Organization, very robust, been tested over the last 30 years, and gives you a really good picture of where you're coming from. There is a link on my website that will take you to what's called the Maybe Drink a Little Less quiz, which will give you a bit of an idea. But, you know, it's a well-recognized tool, and I would imagine a lot of healthcare professionals in America use it too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, step one for us would probably be like, because we have people who can help you with that. Like we have like, drug and alcohol prevention people. So if you have a problem, like you can automatically like be in a safe place, go to them and be like, hey man, like I need some help. And like their sole job is to be like, okay, I got you. This is what we're going to do. And then, you kind of take it from there. If one big issue is like not every human likes every other human, so maybe the person running that group is just like, not my favorite person. So thank you for sharing that, because if you're listening right now and someone in your chain of command is in charge of like the drug and alcohol program, and maybe you feel some type of way and you don't really want to approach them, there's other alternatives out there, right?
Absolutely.
You can stick to the military version, or you can seek help on your own, right? Like put your pants on, put your shirt on, and do what you got to do.
Yeah. I mean, just to give your listeners a bit of an idea, there's sort of 4 approaches that you can take to stopping drinking. One is to go to a kind of a community organization. Typically the AA. I know AA is absolutely huge in the US, isn't it? Started there, didn't it? But there's also things like Smart Recovery, there's Recovery Dharma. There's a lot of different kind of organizations where you go along to weekly meetings and you get help from other people who've recovered. So that is a good starting point. You can do something that's more therapeutic, so you can work through the kind of problems that sit below your drinking, either with a talking therapist or with a more physical therapist. That would be occasionally yoga, but it can also be eye movement desensitization or emotional freedom. Loads of stuff around there. You can do something called cognitive realignment. Probably the most famous person that does that these days, she's called Annie Grace, but a lot of your listeners might have heard of a guy called Alan Carr as well. He wrote a book called The Easy Way to Stop Smoking. Lots of Alan Carr centers in the US that will help you. They kind of get to grips with your beliefs about alcohol, and then they change your thought process. And once you've done that, the action bit is kind of easy. Or you can use what my mate RJ from Wisconsin refers to as the stubborn arsehole method, which is actually just to stop drinking. And I know that kind of sounds revolutionary, but about 45% of people who stop drinking actually stop drinking on their own without any form of formal support. And the good news is there are, huge amounts of podcasts, social media groups, books out there that can really help with that. So you can do it without kind of formal support, but there is also still a ton of resources that people can access out there.
Yeah, I think it's more of like the younger generation that is kind of suffering from this. I mean, yes, still the older generation, people who, like any other job, people just get tired of their job, or they're just having a bad day, and they come home and they think a drink's going to fix it. Maybe just go for a walk, like everyone has to find like their outlet. And what I would encourage everybody to do right now is, if you're listening to this, if you're driving, don't do it. If you're sitting down, do it. Just take a pen and a piece of paper, or calculate in your head, like Duncan said, like how much am I actually drinking, and compute that to a number. A number, I mean, of how much money are you actually spending a day, a week, a month. And then that includes people who smoke as well. You said you're smoking 2 packs a day. That's an expensive habit.
Yeah. What does a pack of cigarettes run to where you guys are these days?
I have no. I would say $12. I would say
$12. Oh,
$12
that's
$12
really,
be
really convenient because they're
yeah.
about £12. So if you
Oh,
spend
okay.
£12 a day, which of course, if you spend $12 a day, inflation adjusted over 20 years, that will cost you about $150,000. So I don't know whether that might motivate any of your listeners.
Wow.
Even if you're only smoking half a pack a day, $6 a day will work out at the thick end of $74,000 in 20 years.
And let's just say, that's for just for cigarettes alone. Let's just say a 6-pack of beer a day. That's the equivalent to probably $12 to $10, which is, let's just say, the same amount of money. So take that number and double it at $300,000 is what you're basically spending to potentially, just take that mental state of, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I can't put into words because I'm actually like dumbfounded right now of like,
Well, do you know what? I
how
saw
much
a
it
post
costs.
on one of the socials earlier today, and they were talking about going out for a drink in a city called Newcastle. Now, I don't know whether your listeners are
Oh,
familiar with
that's a good
with
beer.
the UK, but Newcastle's a lovely city, but it's
Yeah.
about as far as you can get from London and remain in England.
Okay.
And it is one of the cheapest cities in the country. And yeah, they were saying they went out and they spent they bought 4 drinks and it cost them $77. I mean, it actually cost them £63, but they'd nicely done the conversion for all the people in America. So I was like, $77 for 4 drinks.
Yeah.
That is
That
crazy.
that's like how it was when cuz so I'm Norwegian and Italian. I'm half and half, but I'm obviously American. But Norway is where I still have a lot of my family. So
Yeah.
when I was younger, we would go every summer for about a month, 2 months. And when I got older and I was able to actually drink, I got to enjoy the burning of my wallet, as we could say, where I went and I bought a pizza and I bought 4 beers, and the pizza was like $40 and the beers were like $80 for 4 pints, like 4 16-ounce pints of beer. And I'm like, holy shit, like this is expensive. And then the pizza box, mind you, is about 18 inches by 18 inches, and I open it up, and the pizza is only like this big. I was like, good thing I'm not drunk because I'd be ordering a lot of these pizzas.
Yeah.
But just the simple fact of like, this is so expensive. Maybe that would encourage people to quit more. Maybe we need to raise the price of alcohol to like $1,000 a bottle. Maybe everyone would stop drinking.
Funnily enough, that is one of the things that the scientists tend to recommend. And the thing about alcohol pricing is that I mean I'm not familiar enough with the taxation in America, and I rather suspect it varies from state to state anyway. But in the UK, in the last 30 years, alcohol has become cheaper relative to the
Mm,
cost of living because um, the the amount of tax on it it's just a flat percentage. It doesn't go up. So
okay.
while we're still taxing beer at the same rate we were 30 years ago, the amount of tax on it is actually much less in as a percentage of the cost of living. So alcohol is just about the only thing that has got consistently cheaper over the last 30 years.
And I feel like over time, like when alcohol first came out, it was just like alcohol, right? Now we have so many different variations that everyone's trying to keep up and fight with each other, that maybe they're lowering their prices and trying to like revamp things and advertising and all that, where it doesn't really help too much, but it kind of does in the bigger picture for these companies. So it's a lose-lose on that end, I guess you could say. But what are you going to do? So if you gave us those 4 points. Thank you very much for giving those 4 points, because I actually do like the yoga part. Like I myself battled not alcohol problems or drug problems, just like the mental health aspect of it, right? And you can kind of compare both of them, where it's like you needed like an outlet. You needed something to do to get your mind off things, just get your head straight, get healthier and get happier. And mine was like just going for a walk, going for a run, just fresh air. And honestly, this podcast
Yeah.
has helped me connect with so many people. I would have never in a million years thought I'd be sitting down in this chair behind this camera talking to someone from the UK.
It's
Wild.
funny, isn't it?
Wild. If I had a bucket list behind me, I'd check that one off.
Personally, I use writing as a form of free therapy, but if podcasting's working for you, that's brilliant. But I think you hit on a really, really interesting point. You can have whatever opinions you like about Sigmund Freud, but the thing is that what he started was this very kind of head-first approach to therapy. It was all cognitive, it's all talking, it's all about getting it out of your head. And I'm not saying that there's no value in that. I think for some people that is enormously useful, but it's kind of like dominated the space. And people have misunderstood that actually there is just as important to do the kind of physical work, whether that's through yoga or eye movement desensitization or havening or pranic therapy or breathing or whatever. There's all of these amazing somatic therapeutic modalities. That's a horrible sentence. Sorry about that. There's these great physical ways of getting through the trauma and the pain in your life that are as effective, and in some cases far more effective than talking therapy. And I've met enough people in my life who they sort of say, well, I thought I was broken because that talking therapy, it just didn't work for me. It just wasn't doing anything. And then they got into something like, breath work or yoga or meditation, and it really moved the dial for them. So, I think you're doing a great job to kind of get that out there and help people to understand that.
Thank you very much, man. Words like that just give me that motivation and that courage just to keep going. You know what I'm saying? It's like words of affirmation, but it's not affirmation. Words of encouragement, words of wisdom. I really do appreciate that. Or you could be like RJ and just say, you know what? I'm done. RJ from Wisconsin. Well, we got to say, what people from Wisconsin, they're known for cheese and they're known for having thick skulls. Yeah, they love their football team, or football, not soccer.
No, it's fine. I'm a huge fan of the NFL. If you can have more games in London, it's fine by me.
That's true. Yeah, have you ever been to one of those games or no?
No, I haven't. They are unbelievably expensive.
Really?
But one day I'm gonna treat myself.
Okay, yeah, good. You got to make sure it's actually a good game, good teams playing. You don't want to waste your money on like the New York Jets. Like that's just that's just a wash.
Oh,
yeah,
are we a Giants fan by any chance?
No, I'm from Norway. So take a guess of which team I like.
Ah, yes, that would be the Vikings then.
Yeah, that would be yeah. But by trade, my dad was a Vikings fan. I grew up watching, Randy Moss and Dante Culpepper. If you don't know who they were like a dynamic duo with the quarterback and wide receiver. And ever since at a young age, I always liked the Vikings. And no one really cared. Everyone was just like, the Vikings, like, they're whatever. They're good. They're bad. They're one of those teams. But RJ from Wisconsin, he would probably hate me because the Green Bay Packers and the Vikings, they don't get along.
They do not get along at all. No, but RJ he's a very nice guy. He would forgive you. He's
He'd be like, yeah, you're a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He's reached a level of peace in his life, I think.
Okay, good. Shout out RJ and shout out the Green Bay Packers. So, Duncan, I'm kind of curious. You have this big career in battling alcohol addiction, correct? What were some highlights in your career that you would like to share?
Well, I mean, the thing that I enjoy the most about what I do is I don't force people to do stuff. That just doesn't work.
Correct.
I just talk to people and I help them to examine what they believe about. Well, it starts off being about alcohol, but sometimes it goes a little bit further than that, and we start to really get into kind of like, why have you done that? And I love that when you just sort of like you get them to start talking about something, and they've believed this for 20 years, the whole of their life, whatever, and they get halfway through the sentence, and you can just see that they've realised it's complete and utter rubbish. But they've believed it for so long, they've just never said it out loud. And it's just simply that act of saying it out loud. And you can kind of like see these beliefs just melt away, kind of like just disappear. And you can see people change in front of you. And that is such an enormous privilege. You know, I think it's very special that people like kind of let me into that's enormously important. But then, you know, at the end of the day, I know that there are people out there who have, but they're still alive because I helped them, and that's great, isn't it? You know, I mean, what can you do that's better than keep somebody alive? And I'm sure many of your listeners, you know, they will have had experiences that kind of chimes with, and it's very, very special. And you know, honestly, what I do is a privilege, and you know, I do it for free, except my daughter wants a unicorn, and they're quite expensive, so I do have to charge, I'm afraid. But I would genuinely do it for free because it's so special.
Yeah, honestly, I do know exactly what you mean. And people ask me, oh, like, have you made money? Have you done this? Like, listen, I'm not here to make money to buy unicorns. You know, I'm honestly just here because I like to do it. And I don't get the satisfaction, I guess you could say, with, you know, seeing someone's eyes open and like realization hitting them. But I do hope that has happened and it continues to happen with me growing this platform and producing it as much of a message as I can to my audience.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the very interesting things about stuff like podcasting and writing, indeed, that you know, you put it out into the world and you don't know who listens. I mean, you do to an extent, don't you? Some people get in touch. You know, your mum says, "That was another good show there," but Duncan, you should swear less in your books, things like that. But you know, in general, you don't see half of the impact. And this was brought home to me the other day when I somebody I've known for quite a while, and I know them from the speaking circuit, and I was like, "Oh, how's it going?" And they said, "Oh, I've stopped drinking." And I was like, "Oh, have you now? That's kind of interesting." And they were like, "Well, you know, they'd heard me speak a couple of times before, and it was like, well, it wasn't that made them stop drinking, but they did realise that it was a nudge. You know, it was kind of like it was a touch point, it was a step on the journey, call it whatever you like, but it was a part of that. And like, I think we're kind of a bit too keen to say, oh, well, you know, I helped you to stop drinking, therefore it's all down to me, aren't I? You know, Billy Big Boots. But it's not always just down to you. You've got to recognise that there are all of those steps in between. And even if you're just that step, you know, you are making a difference, and it's so important.
Yeah. You know, the Sistine Chapel wasn't built in one day. You know, everything takes time. You just have to be patient and know, like, hey, like, you're not the only one who has alcohol problems, right? Like, you can, if you need a safe space, you can go to like these AA meetings and see, like, you know, there's other people that are just like you, and this is not like a rare thing. You know, you're not the only one in the world that's going through something like this.
Yeah. And honestly, when I was drinking, I thought I was, you know, I thought I had this problem that nobody else knew anything about and nobody could help. And part of the solution is figuring out that you might be sitting in a different city, in a different chair, you know, but you've got the same poison in your glass and you've got the same bullshit in your head as the rest of us.
Yeah, vodka tastes the same no matter where you
join
are.
up, brother. You're just exactly like us. I've been there, I've done that, I've got the t-shirt. I just don't wear it because it's got cigarette burns in it.
Yeah, exactly. Duncan, what would you say the relationship between alcohol and the military is?
Well, I think there are a couple of sort of difficulties which make people in the military more susceptible to having issues with alcohol. Any job that involves long periods of staying away from home tends to be associated with higher drinking, particularly if you are in a situation where you are not able to drink when you're away from home. So this is something that's quite common in the merchant navy, so the civilian navy.
Okay.
That's quite common because they obviously spend long periods of time away from home and they're not able to drink. So when they get back home, they go a bit crazy. Oil rigs, exactly the same, and of course, that's very much the military. I think there's also a lot of issues around mental health, and I would be amazed if the American military isn't doing anything to really try and get to grips with that. I know in Britain they've kind of realised that it's one thing to train soldiers to go and fight in a combat zone, to actually teach them to use guns and things like that, which is quite important if you're going to a combat zone. But the other piece of training that you need to do is around mentality and resilience and what you're going to do when you come back. And you've got to start preparing them, in basic training even. And I think that's a message that's coming across. But however much you do that, there is always going to be an element of trauma in the job, and trauma and alcohol, drug abuse, a lot of problems in life. Those things are related. So it's kind of like there's a lot of underlying factors that make it more likely that people will have issues. And then I think certainly in the British Army, there was always this kind of sense that being a part of the group and bonding and doing things together, it almost always revolved around alcohol. That was the kind of the default setting. And if you weren't there drinking the pints, getting drunk on a Friday night, then you weren't one of the team. And that is not a good place to be in, in the military, is it? The team is absolutely everything. So I think there's this kind of this storm of issues, some of which are being addressed, some of which probably we could do a little bit more work on around culture and team building and things like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think every military is exactly the same when it comes to like things like this. It's like, yeah, like, every country will have like maybe their own belief or they're fighting for something different than somebody else's. But the people holding the guns, the people in the uniform, we're all exactly the same. Our largest organ in our body is our skin. We all have 2 lungs. We all have a heart. We all have a brain. We all have teeth. We're literally exactly the same. It's just we come from different places. And I think the U.S. military does a good job trying to, preach mental health and help mental health. I mean, personally, from experience, the military has helped me with my mental health and kind of guided me in the right direction to be like, hey, this is what we're going to do for you, but what are you going to do for you? I can keep you in this room for a half an hour and talk to you, but what about the other 23 and a half hours that you're not in this office? What are you going to do for yourself? And that was the biggest realization for me, was to come home and be like, my wife, my mom, my dad, be like, yo, I got some shit going on. This is what's happening. I needed to get it out so everybody can hear me. Everybody can understand what I'm going through. And if I need help, I'm going to say something. If not, just keep everything going normal. And if you see me going backwards, let me know and pull me forwards. If not, let's get through this together. And I want to thank all my medical staff, all my medical professionals, all of my friends, all of my family for helping me get to where I am today compared to a year and a half ago. Because that was not fun. No, not fun. I felt like I had my shoes on backwards every day I woke up. It was just, it was not fun.
Yeah, and I think it's, it's 2 really important things in that. I mean, one, just to acknowledge that it is about connection and it is about other people, and it takes a lot of help and support from a lot of different people, and you never say thank you too much. So
yeah, never.
If you know me and you helped me out back in the day, I'll say thank you to you now, and even if you didn't, I'll say thank you anyway because you helped someone out. So you can never say thank you too much. But I think there's also a bit of a piece around kind of like just helping people to realize that, you know, it isn't just accessing that service. That service can only do so much for you. You know,
Yep.
we can program your sat nav, we can fill your car full of petrol, but you've got to drive. You know,
Yeah.
you've got to walk down that road. We'll walk next to you with it. You know, we're happy to walk next to you, but unless you're putting one foot in front of the other, you know, there's
Yeah, that
limited amounts that people can do for you.
yeah, that it is what it is. You know, you gotta want to help yourself. You know, like it's your problem. You have to fix it in a way. There's help out there that will help you fix it, but at the end of the day, you know, it's like if you realize like you're gaining weight, how is that guy next to you going to help that? You know, it's like stop eating.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I think it's difficult because like a lot of this stuff, it's not your fault, right? You know,
Yeah.
the rubbish that the advertisers were trying to shove into your head about food, about cigarettes, about alcohol. You know, that's not your fault. You know, the behaviors that you learned from your parents, the trauma that you had when you were growing up, you know, that really is not your fault. You know, so much of what underpins your behavior is not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it is your problem.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got to kind
Well
of like
said.
recognize that you did not create the world that you live in. You did not create the situation that led you to believe what you believe about the world. But if you continue to believe that and continue to act in that way, you will just escalate your problems. So yeah, I'm very keen on pointing out to people that it is not their fault. Unfortunately, it is their problem, though.
I like that. That's actually very well said. I'm gonna use that if that's okay with you.
Oh, yeah, help
That's a good
yourself.
one. That's a good one. So Duncan, honestly, man, I've had you for a little bit now, and the wisdom and the advice you've given is honestly phenomenal. I just want to say thank you because you can never say thank you too much.
Likewise, I will take that in the spirit that it's meant and stand in its light. So thank you.
I love that. Duncan, what do you have going on in the future? What are you excited about? Any plans, any ambitions, anything?
Yeah, so I've got another book coming out. It might even be out by now. It comes out on Boxing Day. I don't know what your release schedule is like. It's called Real Men Quit. As I alluded to earlier, I do often make these sort of like dodgy pseudo-military references, and you know, that book is packed full of it. It's got James Bond, it's got Star Wars, it's got sport, it's got
Nice.
dick jokes. It's very very. It's kind of like almost terrible, but we're blokes and we like that kind of stuff. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. You're
yeah.
definitely speaking to the military as soon as you said dick jokes. That's what I got.
Well, I did kind of hold back a little bit. I spent 10 years in the fire service, and you know, I actually was with a guy in the fire service who was in the Green Jackets. That's not the people who've won the American Open. That's a bit of the British Army. And he was a great guy, and we would often talk about the similarities between his experiences in the fire service and in the military, and particularly that hurry up and wait. That's the
Hurry up and wait. Yeah, we say hurry up and wait and sempre Gumby. Do you know who Gumby is?
not a clue, but I'm about to find out. Right?
Gumby was like that. He was like a fictional character that was very flexible. So sempre Gumby, just remain flexible because I'm gonna make you stand here for 4 hours waiting for me to come tell you what to do. And what I told you in the morning is the complete opposite of what we're gonna be doing in the afternoon. So just hurry up and wait and sempre Gumby. That means remain flexible because things are always going left and right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Duncan, anything that you have done in the past, anything that you're going to continue to do, where can my audience find all of Duncan's work?
So if you want to find me, I do do quite a bit on Instagram, do quite a bit on LinkedIn, and I do quite a bit on Facebook. And I am
Okay.
pretty easy to find if you can spell Bhaskaran, which most people can't. It's Bhaskaran. But if you put Bhaskaran Brown into the internet, then you find me, because there's me and my wife and my daughter, and my daughter's too young even for TikTok. So find me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Connect, follow, like, or whatever the appropriate verb is, and then send me a message, and I will send you a link to my last book, Get Over Indulgence. You can have that on PDF, on your Kindle, or as an audiobook. I will send that to your listeners happily.
Oh, thank you so much. And all of those, for what Duncan just said, I will definitely drop those in any description below. And I'll obviously tag him in whatever social media post I have. This way you can find that easier. So find that tag, click that link, hit him up, and he'll give you a free audiobook. And that's honestly phenomenal. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Well, you haven't listened to it. It's my really bad, low rent Monty Python voices.
Yeah, but you know, so it's not your voice.
No, it is my voice, but I just did a lot of silly voices for it.
Oh, yeah, but that's good because, I think, like, as an American, I love other accents. Like, your accent, I can literally listen to it all day.
Oh, well,
I bet you guys, like, hate you, like, oh, it's Americans again. Why do they say everything weird?
I tell you, I was chatting to a lovely lady from America the other day. She was Pennsylvania way, and she's moved to this country, and she realised that the name of one of the shops in the UK she pronounces exactly the same as the accent that we all take the mick out of, the kind of like right down the bottom of the country, Cornwall, the West Country, where everybody's a bit kind of like, it's a bit rural and everybody's a bit inbred and thick. Lives down there. I think you'd probably call them rednecks, wouldn't you?
Yeah. You got they like pickup trucks and they like shooting things, and
because we were chatting about accents, I was like actually listening to her, and I'm like, well, that you've got like this particular twang of the American accent, so I should definitely get better at it. You certainly sounded more New York when you said you were from New York.
America is just a huge melting pot, and then New York especially, it's a huge melting pot where there's people from every country, people from every race, gender, religion, everything. They all come to New York, and it's crazy to hear all of the different accents. But a New Yorker when you hear a New Yorker or you see a New Yorker, like they have like the little crosswalk with the people and then the hand that tells. New Yorkers don't follow that. Just because there's lines in the street that says you can walk here, that doesn't mean nothing. If there's no cars, I'm going. There's no
people after my own heart.
No. You want to know what I do think? And this was brought to light maybe like a week or two ago. I was just scrolling on Facebook and I seen something. And it was like a high school student from the UK, and he says, I don't get why Americans call it gasoline. It's literally a liquid. And I was like, wow. Yeah, that's right. Like, because you call it petrol and we call it gas. And he was like, I don't know why they call it gas. It's literally a liquid. And I was like, holy shit, this kid's right. I was like, I don't know why we call it gas.
Oh, do you want the interesting one? Because you guys all call it soccer. And a lot of British people get annoyed with Americans for calling it soccer. But soccer is actually what it is called. Because soccer is an abbreviation for association football, which is, you have to say association football, because if you just say football, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between association football or soccer and American football, Aussie rules football, Gaelic football, rugby football. There's lots of different types of football. So soccer is the right way of saying it. So if any Brits give you heaps for that, send them my way.
I'm going to say, hey, click this link. Get an audiobook.
It's like literally how they used to talk about soccer in England when Queen Victoria was on the throne. That's how old school it is.
Well, I mean, all I'm saying is if any of my friends hit up any, Britons and I'm like, let's play some football, we're going to show up with helmets and pads. So if you show up with shin guards, good luck. Duncan, before I let you go, Duncan, any questions for me? Anything you want to say to me? Any last words?
Just, I mean, thank you so much for what you're doing. I think it's so important. I've as I said at the start, I've worked with enough people in the military to know that, they're always so helpful and so cheerful and so incredibly committed to just getting it done. And I think that, we as a society, we probably don't return the favour. We don't do enough for them. So anything that you can do to help the people who are out there helping, trying their hardest to make the world a better place, I'm in admiration of you. So well done, man.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate all of your kind words. I appreciate
Views
all your
presented
wisdom.
are those
Well,
of the
we'll catch you
speaker
next time on
and the
pod.
guest
Take care,
do not
guys.
necessarily represent the views of the Department of Defense or its components. Neither the Department of Defense or its components bears any responsibility for the accuracy, legality, or content of the views discussed on this podcast.